Let's go back to basics and talk about how to fix a common pronunciation mistake so that people understand you better. Let's talk about how to pronounce the ed ending on past tense verbs and participial adjectives that you use all the time. The good news is that unlike most things you learn in English, the rules for how to pronounce these ed endings are always true. Finally, we have a rule without exceptions. So let's get started. When you see these two letters together, it seems like you should just say ud. Depending on your native language, you may be tempted to add the ud sound to every single past tense verb because it gives you more time to pronounce the ending. However, as you've probably learned from experience, this can lead to a communication breakdown when people don't understand which word you're using. That's because there are actually 3 ed endings that we add to past tense verbs and ed adjectives. Which ending you choose has to do with the sound that you hear at the end of the main verb. I'll repeat that again. Which ed ending you choose depends on the sound at the end of the main verb, not the consonant itself. For the purposes of discussing ed endings, we can separate sounds into 2 categories, voiced and voiceless. Voiceless sounds are the ones that are produced without using your voice box. You can identify whether or not a sound is voiceless by taking your hand and putting it on your neck. Go ahead and put your hand on your neck. This will help you remember how the sound is made and figure out the ending without having to memorize a list of rules. So let's look at some voiceless sounds and how they relate to the ed ending. If we say the word look, we can hear that it ends in the k sound. The final sound is voiceless, which means I can't feel my voice box vibrating. Let's try it together. Take your hand and let's say the word look. Look, look, look. As you notice, your voice box is not vibrating on that k sound. K, k, k. Try it for yourself. Look, look, look. Now try saying the t sound, the same sound you hear at the end of the word cat. T, 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 t. Do you feel your voice box vibrating? No, you don't. The t sound is also a voiceless sound. In order to make it easier for our mouths to transition smoothly from one sound to the next, we add the t sound to past tense verbs that end in a voiceless sound. This means the past tense of the word look is looked. Let's try it with your hand on your neck. Looked, looked, looked. As you can hear, you're transitioning from the k sound to the t sound. Looked. There's no vibration happening from the K to the T sound. What about the word tap? Try saying the word tap and seeing if your voice box vibrates on that last sound. Tap, tap, tap. P, p, p. No, it doesn't. That means the past tense of the word tap is tapped. Tapped, tapped, tapped. Now let's try the word laugh. Laugh, laugh. As you can see, this word ends in the f sound, even though the last 2 letters are G and H. Laugh. That is also a voiceless sound. Laugh, laugh, laugh. That means the past tense is laughed, laughed, laughed. Another example, miss, miss, miss. As you can tell, this is also a voiceless sound. Miss, miss, miss. That means the past tense will be missed, 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 missed. One more example, wash, wash. Try putting your hand on your neck. Wash, wash, wash. The past tense of wash is washed, washed, washed. Once again, we add the T sound to the end of verbs that end with voiceless sounds. Now let's talk about voiced sounds. As you can probably guess, your voice box vibrates when you say voiced sounds. Try the V sound. Put your hand on your voice box and see if you can feel it vibrating. V, V, V. Yes, you can feel your voice box vibrating on the V sound. Let's look at the word move. In order to help our mouth transition from a voiced sound, we need to add another voice sound to the end of the past tense verb. Try saying the D sound. D, D, D. You can feel your voice box vibrating. That's why the ed ending sounds like D after voiced sounds. So the past tense of move is moved. Moved. Moved, moved. Let's try another example. Plan, 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 plan. As you notice, the N sound, n, is also a voice sound. That means the past tense of plan is planned. Planned, planned, planned. Here's another one. Hug, hug, hug. Put your hand on your neck and see if you can feel your voice box moving. Hug, hug, hug. Notice it, right? That means the past tense will be hugged, 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 hugged. One more example, comb, comb, comb. As you notice, your voice box is vibrating on the M sound. It doesn't matter that the final letter is a B. Combed, combed, combed. What about verbs that end in vowel sounds like the word play? Try putting your hand on your voice box and seeing if it vibrates. Play, play, play. It definitely does, which means we pronounce the past tense of play with the D sound at the end. Played, played, played. Here's another example, agree, 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 agree. As you can tell, your voice box is vibrating, which means we add the D sound to the end. Agreed, agreed, agreed. One last example, try, try, try. Do you feel your voice box vibrating? That means we'll pronounce the ED ending as D. Tried, tried, tried. Last, let's talk about the two special cases where the ED ending actually sounds like id. We pronounce the ending as id after the T and D sounds, t and d. This is because we need extra time to distinguish between the t sound and the d sound, or the d sound and another d sound. Adding the extra syllable enables us to hear clearly that we're using the past tense version of the verb rather than the base form. If you rush and try to say those sounds together, it just doesn't sound right. As I just mentioned, adding the id sound to the end of these verbs adds an extra syllable. The other ed endings don't add an extra syllable to the end of the verb. The sounds flow smoothly into the next. But with the ed ending after T and D sounds, you do need an extra syllable. Here are some examples. Invited, invited, invited. Decided, decided, decided. Resided, resided, resided. Once again, I want to remind you that we're paying attention to the sound at the end of the verb, not the consonant itself. We already saw some examples with the word laugh and the word comb. Those words sound different than they look. Let's consider the consonant S. Sometimes it sounds like S, which is a voiceless sound, and sometimes it sounds like Z, which is a voiced sound. For example, on the word close, the final sound is actually Z. Close, close, close. That means the past tense of the verb is actually closed, 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 with the D sound at the end. Now that you understand how to create the ED endings on regular past tense verbs and participial adjectives, it's time to practice. Whenever you come across a new regular verb, take your hand and put it on your neck in order to see if your voice box is vibrating or not on the final sound. In order to get more comfortable using these 3 different ED endings, find a list of the 100 most common regular verbs. You can practice saying the correct ending after each verb. And remember, if you're not sure if you're pronouncing the verb correctly or you're not exactly sure of the final sound in the verb, you can do a quick Google search, take a look at the phonetic spelling, see if it helps you out, or even listen to how the verb is pronounced. Although this change may seem small, it makes a big difference in how easy it is for native speakers to understand you. Remember, we add the ed ending to verbs automatically, and we're expecting to hear you use the right one too. Yes, of course it will take some practice to start doing it automatically, but it will definitely help you sound more natural. Now it's your turn. Share a verb you use all the time and tell me what the sound should be at the end of the verb, t, d, or ud. I'll let you know how you did. Once again, I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I'm your guide to the essential communication skills you need to sound more natural in English. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good one. Goodbye.